Good evening and welcome again. My name is J.D. Beekes. I want to deviate from my normal videos a little bit today. It is Women's Month and therefore important to highlight issues around women. And I thought that it will be important to highlight one of those important issues at such a time is the one around gender-based violence. Now, of course, there are many talks and discussions around gender-based violence, and rightly so. But still, and despite all of that, a lot of people still ask the question, why do we have to talk about gender-based violence? Why is it important to even bring that up? In the next few minutes, just want to highlight one or two issues around that concerning why do we have to talk about it, and moreover, why do we have to talk about that to men? Now, statistics generally tell us that South Africa has one of the highest national average figures when it comes to reported cases around gender-based violence. In other words, all of the figures reported on an average basis for the whole country. If you take that figure and you compare that to other countries around the world, then South Africa has one of the highest national averages. Secondly, it's important to talk about this matter because in the time that we're living in, there seems to have been an escalation. In fact, the President of South Africa is on record as having said that South Africa has to deal and is busy dealing with two pandemics. One, the issue of COVID-19, and the second pandemic that South Africa is battling concurrently is the issue of gender-based violence. Now, South Africa has become a very violent society. If you look at police statistics, national figures around crime is very high, particularly in the area of violent crime. When you look at the kind of crimes that are committed, it seems like to a certain extent violence has become normalized in the South African society, and for that matter, certain parts of the world over. So it's important to highlight that as a part of gender-based violence. The other reason why it's important to talk about gender-based violence, statistics tell us that in most reported cases, men are the perpetrators of the said violence. In other words, in all the cases, and for most cases that have been reported to and with the police, when you look at the statistics around that, men in most cases are the perpetrators of violence. So there's a whole lot of discussions going on with women and women's groups, and women talk about that, and others talk to women about that as victims and in other ways. But it's important that if we then say that men seems to be contributing to the problem and causal factor there around, then we need to be speaking to men as well. Now, of course, in my talks and my discussions with men, when I speak around and about that, the issue is not to condemn. The intention is not to make them feel bad. The issue is rather, and the focus in my talks with men is primarily to say, let us dissect this major challenge that we're dealing with. Let us look at the facts around that. Let us understand what it is. Let us begin to interpret the magnitude thereof. Let us see and look at reasons why men are contributing and behaving in the manner that they do. And therefore, let's see if there are any solutions that we can share with one another. Of course, my intention and my focus and my outlook when talking about these matters are always that there is hope. But there is hope for people who acknowledge that they have a problem. There is hope for people who acknowledge that they are part of the problem. And there is hope for people who says, I may very well be the cause of the problem. So yes, the focus is to highlight this matter, to speak to men, to speak to the wider the community, but we want to raise the flag. We want to raise awareness. We want to amplify this matter. We want to illuminate that. And yes, indeed, we want to urge men who are affected by that to the extent that they are perpetrators and become aware of that. We want to urge them to go and seek help. With South Africa being part of the global community, there is therefore no reason why we can ignore that. In fact, on a rather constant basis, we are comparing ourselves to other countries as part of the global community. So I'm hoping that at least for this video and for this talk and through this message, men will begin to consider whether or not they are part of the problem, and then begin to think about ways and means of how to amplify, illuminate, highlight, and become aware of that. Secure information, reach out, and maybe you can find help about that. I thank you.